Thank you everyone for joining us today for this interesting conversation about the current challenges in CME. And we are going to talk about organizational aspects. As you know, we have been after a period of COVID pandemic in which we experienced a lot of changes, and how we as providers change our way of dealing with medical education. And how this environment changed during this time and what we face in this period. So I'm here today with Margarita Velcheva from Kenny's Group, that is a professional conference organizer and also provide accredited CME. And we have Sophie Wilson, that is from International Medical Press, that is also specialized in providing peer-reviewed independent medical education and accredited CME within Europe. And I'm Monica Ghidinelli. I'm working for the EU Foundation, that is also is a medical society and a provider of medical education. So I want to address Margarita with the first question regarding how do you feel that the accreditors responded during the pandemic and to the changing environment?
Thank you, Monica. And good afternoon, everyone today. So I would like to start with saying that during the pandemic, we were faced with the possibility to experience some dynamics in the way we deliver and develop medical education. With having said that, we also witnessed shortened approval times and deadlines with the accreditors, who answered the need to change that from the original 12 to 14 weeks to 7 weeks, and even for some COVID-related education to 1 week. Which was great because the education was delivered a lot easier and accredited a lot faster. So going back to original deadlines, this is no longer the case, and we have to turn around education together with our faculty in a lot longer periods. So this is obviously affecting both the faculty and the learner. So during the pandemic, we all, the providers, the learners, and the accreditors, learn how to make the most out of the virtual digital classroom, and now we shouldn't go to where we were. We should try to keep innovating and keep changing. So therefore, I think it's extremely crucial to keep in mind these deadlines and the changing environment, and we should focus on delivering or try to deliver education as fast as possible, so we can capture the most updated information the soonest, and we should be able to have that accredited. So this is again linked to faculty, because it will be a lot easier for us to get the information from them, and also for the accreditors, and also for the learners, because they will be able to get the information a lot faster. So accreditors need to work with us to continue this innovation and facilitating also new formats, because microlearning, and this is something we have been speaking about for a while now, is becoming extremely interesting, and accrediting hybrid events also, that where physicians can maximize learning, and basically, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Margarita. Do you have anything to add, Sophie?
No. Good morning, all. Good afternoon. No, I think the most important thing for me is this point about innovation. You know, the pandemic forced us all to do things differently, to explore how we were doing things and how we could maximize learning. And I think it would be a real shame if we just went back to pre-pandemic times and did things how we did things before for years and years. The pandemic had a silver lining, as we say in English, and it forced us to look at how we were developing learning programs and delivering them. And I think the really important thing is that we mustn't lose that innovation. And we all have to work together, faculty, accreditors, industry, providers. We need to all work together to recognise that innovation and keep that momentum going.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. And yes, going back to what was before is not a good idea, especially because we got used to certain things and we were able to deal with them in a certain time frame. So now going back to the long accreditation deadline and things like that is not really favoring spreading of a good education. So now I would like to know from you, Sophie, what is your experience with industry support and how that changed and which are the challenges that you face now?
I think one of the big things is that at the start of the pandemic, certainly our supporters were very quick to recognise that the challenges of the pandemic, and they gave us free rein to be flexible and to use the grants that they've given us on with one scope to use it and adapt it to developing learning for our learners as best we thought. And I think that was a really important thing. I think one of the things that happened with the pandemic was that virtual programs had a really big reach. You know, small workshops of less than 200 people were suddenly reaching 500, 600, 800 people all over the world. People who in the past didn't have the travel funds or whatever to attend a program suddenly could. And so, you know, when we did our statistics for our reports back to our supporters, they got used to really, really big numbers. And, you know, the programs that they were funding were reaching more and more people. And I think, you know, the supporters liked that. But I think they're continuing to expect that from face-to-face. And we're not back to the pre-pandemic days. You know, even face-to-face congresses, the numbers are not as high in my experience, you know, and often delegates are joining online, the main sessions online from their hotel room, and they're only going to the live networking sessions. And I don't know if that's because they're worried about being in a room with a lot of people, and that they're choosing where they interact with people, you know, or perhaps online learning, they can, you know, by doing the online sessions, they can better balance that in their emails and everything. I'm not sure. But as a result, you know, our supporters are expecting big numbers. But we can't offer, you know, we're not reaching that big numbers going back face to face, you know, and a lot of people are looking at and wanting hybrid education, but then budgets remain a challenge because, you know, at the start of when we started coming out of the pandemic, people thought, oh, well, hybrid, we'll just broadcast out. But a real educational event, just a feed broadcasting out, is not a good learning experience. You know, you need to be able to engage not just the face-to-face audience, but also the live audience. And how do you do that? You do that with polling. You need to do that for two audiences. That's not just one extra feed. That's a huge extra budget, and that's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for our supporters. And I don't know what the solution is at the moment. And I think it's doubly difficult because in the current world climate, budgets are cut, everything is becoming more expensive. You know, chips from AV equipment is more expensive, hotel and venues are more expensive because they still need to be COVID safe. So a face-to-face event in its own right is more expensive, I think, and we're trying to add hybrid to it. So I think that for me is one of the biggest challenges for our our interactions, our relationships with our industry supporters is that we're trying to offer better, more innovative learning, taking into account what we learned during the pandemic, and we're trying to combine that with the face-to-face, and budgets aren't there, and that's a really big challenge for me. And that's, you know, we also have developed during the pandemic, we developed some great online educational initiatives, and they were ongoing, you know, they were week on week, month on month, and now suddenly our supporters are saying, well, we're not going to be able to support that next year because we have to support face-to-face and we don't have the budget to do both. So that for me is where the challenge is with supporters.
Thank you, Sophie. Do you have anything else to add on that, Margarita?
Great, Sophie, great points. And I absolutely agree with you. It's, and again, what you mentioned previously, collaboration is crucially important. We, within our provider environment, we need to share just different cases and try to learn from each other and experience things. And obviously communicate that back to the supporters, because they must understand what is the situation where we are in and how exactly we can work together towards finding solutions. Because yeah, we are different providers, but at the end of the day, we face the same challenges.
I think that basically we all agree that the main problem with the supporter is budget cut. They want us to reach a broader audience, giving us less money. Yes, then hybrid events are costing more. The traditional one is actually doing two things in one. So it's not just, yeah. So I mean, I totally agree. We have the same experience. But now let's go back to the learner, because we talked about accreditors, we talked about industry support, both very important aspects. But now the learner, did the learner behavior changed, and how do you feel about that? Margarita?
Great, yes, Monica, thank you. So the learning behavior certainly did change. We had more than enough time to evaluate that, to study that. And there are some very interesting observations that we have experienced. So first of all, learners expect to get new data quickly in a format that suits them. So really tailored education. As I mentioned earlier, so in the context of microlearning, so anything shorter, even shorter than half an hour, you know, couple of minutes, also information that it's easier, so they can balance between their commitments at work. I mean, we're dealing with professionals with very busy schedules, so they need to try to get information on the go, also between patient visits. So it's essential that we develop in education that it's really there anytime they need it, and also needs to be updated. Also, we noticed that there is difference in the preference of learners, so between the age. So some learners prefer the live and virtual for really the education, and others they prefer to go to conferences, also for the informal way of learning, the networking, which is very crucial. And unfortunately, we can't reach that in the same amount of effectiveness as in a virtual space. So the live event will still remain a crucially important aspect of a learning of a healthcare professional, while engaging with older experts, with more experienced colleagues, sharing knowledge, and, you know, also sharing how different things work, etc. So these are the two main things that come to my mind when we speak about learners' expectations and what has changed.
Okay, thank you, Margarita. And for you, Sophie?
I think, thank you, Margarita, that was really interesting. I think for me, the really interesting thing is what are doctors getting, learners getting from the live events? What are they getting from the online events? And if the live events are really the networking, and that they learn the sort of skills-based hands-on stuff, should we be looking at how congresses as a PCO, Margarita, do you look at congresses to think, should you be changing the format of the Congress to make it more of a networking event, and then through your reach of your website and your as Congress PCOs, you have great lists of interested doctors. Should you, with your societies, be cutting short the congresses to really maximize networking, and then do online learning for the sort of information exchange? It's a really interesting thing, and perhaps we should be brave and explore doing things even more differently.
Exactly. So very good point. Thank you, Sophie. So the way we look at big conferences, I would say, is maybe a collaboration of different events within one big event. So there are obviously so many different sessions going on, and every single session would address different knowledge. It will be developed to address different competences, right? So we would have, and then according to the need of the learner, we'll have sessions that are really, delivering information. So it's basically focusing on knowledge. Then we have workshops that are really focusing on certain, doing something, learning how to do something, and then practicing that, etc., etc. Roundtable discussions. I mean, so within that, as I said, big event, we would have all these different little aspects, and then participants can go and attend all these things that are really interesting for them and based on their learning objectives of the event. I agree, we have to experiment and see what works best and develop everything towards the need. So we have to try to aim to meet the need of the learner, most importantly.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me as a EO is also providing a lot of hands-on courses, so workshops where they have really to learn skills. For us, let's say there is a need to go back face to face. We can still provide the knowledge component online, and the participants are happy to do that on the online platforms. But of course, we still need them to come on site to learn the skills. And we have a little bit of a change in the behavior of the participants with late registrations, because you don't know if the event will be canceled or not. And let's say that probably there is also, I mean, from one part, now they want to travel more because they have been blocked for 2 years. But on the other side, I mean, they don't want to waste time because now the workload probably is very high because of the delay in some of the surgeries, since we serve the surgeons community. And so here it's always like, what is your target audience? And they have a little bit different behaviors based on their level of expertise and where they are in their career path. And we try to do our best to serve our community to provide the education that they need, but it's not always, you cannot have a formula that fits all. So it's really, you have to offer multiple opportunities for them to choose from. This would be my take home. So now we talked about also the participants, but we have a really important component that is the faculty. So Sophie, how the faculty behavior changed?
I think the positive thing is that the faculty had to adapt very quickly to the online environment. You know, in the first month or so, it was like, you're muted, I can't hear you. You know, it was. But faculty have now, you know, they've had to learn new ways to present, to teach, to engage their audiences. And a lot of the faculty have now become experts at presenting remotely, and they don't see any point in traveling anymore. You know, why travel halfway around the world to go to a 20-minute lecture? You know, if they travel, it's because they want to network with their peers. So, we really need to think about this. How are we going to get faculty engaged? It's much easier for them to work to present remotely, because they can then fit that in with their clinical skills, their clinical duties. And they just schedule a 30-minute break and then it's back to the clinic. So from a provider's perspective, this brings a really big challenge. Faculty wait until the last minute to engage in the program because they know it's possible technically. We did it during the pandemic. Why can't we do it now? And that brings a lot of challenges for the provider.
Thank you, Sophie, for sharing this. And for you, Margarita, how are your faculty are doing now?
So yeah, I would echo what basically what Sophie is saying. I mean, we reached the point where everybody is very comfortable with the virtual environment, but yet, as I said, the face-to-face networking becomes extremely crucial, and maybe faculty is very much aware that for young doctors, this is extremely important. So that's why they have to take the extra mile and to make the commitment to go somewhere physically and meet with colleagues and young professionals to be able to deliver that knowledge and to exchange expertise.
Sorry, can I just add something, Monica? I mean, one of the other things we found is that during the pandemic, particularly early on, we did a lot of pre-recording of faculty, and by and large, they learned how to do that very quickly. But by pre-recording, we can engage, and I think. But you see, the learners, we attracted learners who were a long way away, who couldn't normally come to the Congress. And I think as we moved through the pandemic, we started saying to faculty, no, we're not pre-recording. We want you to go online live, because then, the doctors who couldn't normally travel, who wouldn't travel, who are far away, they can engage with you live. And so you can get online engagement live. But it's a confidence thing, and sometimes it's easier for faculty to just pre-record one evening and then forget about it. And we need to make that balance so that we ensure that we've got the learner engagement, because without that, there is no learning.
I mean, for me, regarding the point of pre-recorded lectures or pre-recording material, you have some faculty that are really comfortable with them, but some are struggling, and actually it's taking them more time to pre-record the lectures. So I would say, even in that case, you have different views. And I mean, again, we have different sides. So we have some faculty that are willing to travel again, and they are super happy, especially again, because we have hands-on courses. They go back, they also see the other faculty that they didn't see for so long. So because, I mean, the sense of belonging in our medical society is really strong. But on the other hand, yes, time away is also a big difficulty. So again, there is someone that prefer to join online. So yeah, we have always two faces of the faculty group. But here I have a question from the Q&A, and is, do you have ideas to make the live event more interactive, so people do decide to attend in person instead of watching it from the hotel room and just joining for the interactive part where you network? Who wants to take this one?
So we are, maybe I'll start, or Sophie, if you, I'll just give you my thoughts. So we are speaking about a face-to-face event or a live virtual event.
Face-to-face.
Face-to-face event. I mean, again, it comes down to our target audience. How is the education developed to meet the needs of our target audience? And it's also a lot about the education. what is the education that we are delivering? I mean, I'm sure, and then according to the formats, yeah, we are trying to include different ways to engage polls to get so to have these two ways of communication, not just information that goes one way, but really to have comments, discussions, really to engage the audience to participate. With as I said, polling, it can be some interactive voting, etc.
So, Sophie?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think, like, I agree with Margarita. It's all about engagement. I mean, we're now thinking much more when we organise a live event about what would people benefit from being live as opposed to online. You know, online we can do the polls, we can get people's opinion, but what is much more difficult to get online is the sort of discussion. So we're always trying to think of how can we build this workshop, this symposium, so that so as to maximize the talking between faculty and attendees and learners, because that's something which is much more difficult to do online, at least not in a big environment. You can do that in a small 20 people online workshop, but if you're doing a symposium online, you can't really have that sort of discussion. But you can if you're in an auditorium and you want to do, say, a sort of panel discussion format. I think I think that's what we're trying to do, is trying to think, what can you give more live, face-to-face than you would online?
Okay, so we have another question that is regarding, so now that we are going back to the normal, we are back to the normal, or more or less the normal. For you, what is the #1 priority to address in the CME space? One sentence each. You can go first, Margarita.
Great, that's a great question. I would say the new normal, because yeah, the old normal, nobody, I don't think we'll ever have the chance to go back to that. #1 priority, I mean, to deliver quality and effective, appropriate education that is balanced, independent, and I would say we should be transparent of how we deliver that. Transparent to the learner and transparent to show what kind of how did we fund this activity. I think because obviously we all rely on funding from industry or from other organizations.
Sophie, your top.
I totally, I mean, I think effective education, as Margarita says, is fundamental. But I think looking back to this new normal, is key is not to lose the innovation that we learned during the pandemic. You know, people who did not do digital in the past are now engaging online. Virtual events have brought the world closer together. You know, people who are in Far East Asia can participate in a congress in the States. You know, we need to build on that innovation, on that bringing the world closer together. We couldn't travel, but in some ways, the pandemic brought us closer together because we were just one click away from each other. And whilst that had a downside, that also had a lot of benefits. And I think we shouldn't lose that innovation, that push to do things differently and still come together. Thank you
both. So for me, the priority would be actually to provide, ready to go education, so micro-learning as much as possible. That would be my top priority. And so we have 1 minute left. Actually, we are close to the end, but I would like to thank all the participants, our speaker, Margarita and Sophie, for sharing these challenges. And we will continue this conversation actually during the 15 ECF, so the CME, European CME Forum that will take place in Barcelona in November. And there we will, I mean, here we set the stage for knowing which are the challenges, and there we will discuss about the real solutions that we can put in place to go against these challenges or to solve these challenges. So I thank you all and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.